Hey guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It is 9 o'clock on a Saturday, which means it's time for a Talk Magic. This is the first Talk Magic back in 2026, and we're filming this right at the start of the new year. And what a better way to kick off 2026 than interviewing the person that I have with me today. Now, this person is a legend in the Magic community. This person is somebody who has been there, done that, bought the t-shirt again and again and again. He has literally revolutionized close-up magic as a performer. Then he became a creator and he revolutionized creating. Some of his creations are considered staples amongst working pros all over the world. And then on top of that, he revolutionized social media magic. He revolutionized social media performing. And now he's performing at a completely different level again. This is a person who literally overachieves at every single thing he does. Everyone knows him in the community. You might know him as Kieron Johnson. You might know him as Kieron Lefever. You might know him as Kieron the Mighty. We're going to get into all of those pseudonyms and exactly what's going on. I know him as just a bloody awesome magician. Kieron, how you doing, my friend? Welcome to Magic TV.
Good, Craig. I feel like that's a hard introduction to follow.
It's true, though. It's true.
It's funny, people say that to me, but I never feel like I am achieving. I feel like I need to do more. So I'm currently at this point in my life where I just need to do a bit more. I feel like I'm that song by Lewis Hamilton where he sings "Never Enough." I feel like that's the moment in my life at the moment. I feel like I feel like I'm still learning and I'm still growing as a performer. So it's weird when I think about all the things I've done, but then I think, well, I need to do more.
I get that, but you know, most people that have achieved so much in their career, they don't look at their life as, you know, oh, I've done so much. They kind of go, no, no, I'm just getting started. It's that mental attitude. It's that kind of way that your brain is wired. It's that blueprint that makes you as successful as you are, because you could very, very easily rest on your laurels. And you know, I've said this to many people I've interviewed, but it's so true with you. If you decided to call it a day right now and retire and never perform again in your life, you have achieved so much that most magicians who get to their end of the career, if they could only do half of what you've done, they would look back and go, wow, I had a very successful career. You've literally done all of that. And like you just said, you're just getting started. I mean, that's the scary part.
I just feel like you're always growing. Like at the moment, my new direction of life. I don't know. My friends keep thinking I'm crazy, but my new thing is I'm trying to learn a second deal for the first time, and I'm 42, so I feel like I'm a bit old maybe to be learning the second deal because it's a knacky move and you don't have the reflexes you do when you're young. But I'm just trying to push myself with things that way. And then just seeing if I can work it. I think at the moment with my career, I'm kind of gone. I'm going back to the classics. I spent like the first 10 years of my career saying, put in maximum effort, do crazy stuff, go big. And now I'm like, okay, now I'm gonna see can I do good magic with the linking ring? Can I entertain an audience with an egg bag? Can I entertain an audience with classic magic? Am I capable of doing that? So that's where I'm at the moment because I know I can win with the flashy stuff and the creative stuff, but like, can I be a good magician without that? So that's kind of been my challenge to myself the last year.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And I'm going to get to that point. But for
Yeah.
anybody who doesn't know who you are and isn't aware of what you've accomplished, I want to start this interview off by kind of looking at your career and looking back at where you started and how you got to where you are now. And it starts with a question that I ask everybody, and I'm very interested to know this about you because although I've known your career and I've known you for a very long time, the very first time I met you is when you and I filmed the original Nightshade coin set for World Magic
Yeah,
Shop way back when you had long hair.
yeah, long
Um,
hair.
yeah,
No
so
beers.
I've known you for a very long time, but I'm not aware of a lot of the stuff that you've done in your career. So let's start with your origin story. Tell me about your origin story. How did you get into magic? What did it look like? Where did that all come from?
Okay, so I started doing magic when I was 22, properly. I just got out of the Royal Navy, and I was kind of figuring out what to do with my life. And my friend David, lovely man, gentle giant, he was obsessed with magic and juggling. and his mom had read this small print, this small advertisement, like it was, I don't even know how she saw it, right at the bottom of the newspaper about a magic shop that had opened up in Ainsdale. We went there, and it was tiny. You could barely fit in there. That like it held three people, no bathroom, and it was run by a guy called Robbie Graham, nice guy. And I remember going there, and it was so busy. I just stood outside waiting for my friend David, and I had no interest in magic. I'd actually seen some magicians in the Navy, and I always felt awful about this. Um, but I just didn't have any interest, and I had seen close-up magic, and it wasn't that it was bad or anything. I just didn't. It didn't do anything. And when David Blaine was on telly with his first season, and my dad was obsessed with him, it didn't really do anything for me, magic. And I feel bad saying that because it's something I love so much now. But the truth is, I didn't resonate with it. I think I've always loved comic books and cartoons and animation. And David made me come in the shop, and they didn't even have the trick. This is the craziest thing. They just had a video of Oz Pullman performing cartoon.
Oh yeah.
Uh, and I love animation. So when I saw that trick, I was like, I have to have that because I loved it so much. I love flip books. I was like, I have to have that. So I spent like the £12, but and they said they'd come back next week. And David spent about 100 quid, and I spent 12 quid. And I came back the week after, and then I got that trick, and then I started doing it for people in the pub, and then people loved it. And then I was like, I need to go back to the magic shop to get some more. And then before I knew it, like I was obsessed. And then I bought a DVD set that changed my life, which was Daryl Encyclopedia of Magic, card magic. And I actually didn't know any card tricks for the longest time because I just like sat through learning the moves. I never really thought to learn tricks. So I was just learning technique and shuffles and cuts and then I thought, oh, I actually don't know any tricks. So I just started learning tricks then. So I accidentally got the foundations by mistake just because that's the DVD I had. And then
Before you go on, because this is super fascinating, and I find it really interesting because most people that I speak to on this channel, their origin story is an uncle pulled a coin from behind their ear when they were like 6 years old, or they saw Paul Daniels on TV, or they saw Darren Brown or David Blaine or something along those lines. You're not getting into it till you're 22. That's quite a late start,
and by accident.
and by accident. Like
Yeah.
it's so interesting. Do you feel that, like, because I do get people on come on this channel all the time and say, oh, is it too late for me to start learning magic or becoming a performer and so on and so forth? Did that kind of cross your mind, like, oh, I'm 22 and getting into this? And when you got into it, I suppose the other question, the follow-up to that is, when you got into it and the bug bit and you started learning all these card moves and buying magic and becoming obsessed with it, you said you came out of the Navy not really knowing what to do.
Yeah.
Was your thought at this point, okay, I could actually make this a career, or is this something
No,
you were doing just for fun?
it became an obsession. And I guess like in the shop at the time, everyone, all the magicians were there. There were some really good magicians, and I think I rubbed a few people up the wrong way. Unfortunately, I think sometimes I'm not the best because I don't, we have labels for it now at the time, but at the time it's just like me being me. I'm obsessive, and I think within like someone would show me something, and I would be able to do it within a week or two, and then it would annoy people because they're like they say, oh, we spent our life on that, and I'm like, I was just picking things up quickly. Um, I was dedicating like 10 hours. Like as soon as I went to the magic shop, all I do is I go to the magic shop, I go in my house, I sit in my bedroom. I wouldn't put the TV on. I would just practice and practice and practice and practice. And that's all I would do. And then I'd go to the streets and then I would find people to go practice on. And then I realized that the best way to practice was going on a train because there's a train from Southport to Liverpool and it's only £4. And I could ride it all day back and front. As long as I didn't get off it, no one would say anything to me. So I would get off the train, go on the train, and I basically just perform magic on the train for 8 hours for free every day and just practice and practice, and I became obsessed with practicing.
So you came out of the Navy. Like your life became practicing magic. You weren't getting another job or anything like that. It was
Well,
literally
I had
practicing.
yeah, I had savings, and I literally I just paid my mom enough money to. I basically paid rent for 2 years in my house, and that was it. And I had the money that I spent on magic when I first got into it, and I did that for 2 years, and I just street performed, and not street performed in traditional like at Covent Garden. I just walked. I was basically. Oh, sorry, I should have put this on. Do not disturb. Oh, is this you? You're
Wait,
I thought, yeah. So
hang on. I'll take it. It dropped out, so I'll ask the question again,
yeah, yeah.
and we'll take it from there. Here we go.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
So were you not doing a job? Were you literally just practicing 24/7?
So I was practicing all the time on the train, and then obviously I did that for 2 years, but then the money ran out, so I had to get a job. So I used to wash dishes, and I took a job that didn't really require me too much. Like I was happy just to do that because I would wash the dishes at the weekend. It was just enough money to get by. And by this point, my parents had moved away, so I was kind of living in a squat now with these really interesting characters. And I had a mattress on the floor, but it didn't bother me that like life because my life was like wash dishes, go out to nightclubs, go perform magic for free, possibly get some free drinks and free food, and I basically lived very bare minimum. I didn't have much at all, but I was having a great time. You know, my whole life was dedicated to this. It was kind of like a bohemian lifestyle of just practicing really and having fun. I was just basically doing magic for free. And I think that's kind of when I said I rubbed people up the wrong way because I wasn't doing it as a job. I was just doing it to anyone that would watch. Uh,
It's crazy though that you went until the age of 22, not
but
really interested in magic to the point that like you'd seen it and it didn't really float your boat. And then all of a sudden, because of one thing, you then basically your entire life is not even making money from magic, but just practicing it and becoming the best that you can get. That's such a transpo juxtaposition between.
well, I love the reactions, if I'm being honest. I love the way it made people feel. Because I've been always been quiet, even in the Navy, I was quite quiet. And I don't know, I just loved seeing people smile and freak out. And, I loved it really. I didn't really ever think of it as a job. I think it just felt like something I just enjoyed doing. And it wasn't really about making money and stuff. And when I did make money from it, it wasn't much at all. But it wasn't really about that for me. And I think, you know, sometimes I read forums about how much we should charge and stuff. And I think maybe I have the wrong attitude, but I think charge what you need, and then once you get to the level, you can charge what you want. Because like, what do you need as a human being to get by? Because for me, I don't see this as a job. It's a lifestyle choice being a magician.
Mhm.
And I know that's not for everyone, but for me, it's always been a lifestyle choice. I feel like I probably would have done okay with if I had found another passion, but I like this really. Um,
That's really cool. That's
yeah,
really, really interesting. Really, it's such a unique journey
yeah.
into
So
performing.
it feels
So,
weird. Yeah,
so my question is, when
yeah,
did you act? So you're literally living a very minimalistic lifestyle.
yeah.
You've got a job washing dishes on the weekend, just to give you enough money to live. The rest of the time is dedicated with learning magic, performing magic, becoming better at magic. What then led to the next phase of your life? Because at one point you then you started performing professionally and actually going out there and making money doing this. And when did that happen? Like what caused you to go, okay, the dishwashing job can go. I'm gonna transition into the next stage of my career.
Rocco Solano. That's probably
Okay.
you probably yeah. So as you know, Southport has the Magic Convention, and I couldn't afford to get in. And at this time, the new squat I was living in, there was a fire escape, and I was the only person that could fit through it. So I had rips in all the same places, in all my clothes. So I look pretty homeless, let's be honest, like with my long hair and my clothes, and so I basically just standing outside the convention asking people for autographs. And I'm going to be honest with you, 80% of the magicians I asked for autographs told me to go away because they thought I was, yeah, like, there's a very famous magician that said something to me. I won't mention his name because, like, you know, I get it. I had rips in my clothes. I get it. But I was talking about how much I loved his videotape, and he said, I don't appreciate people stealing my work. And I said, oh no, I paid for it. It cost me £35. It was like I saved up for it. But I think he thought, I don't know, there was a miscommunication. So basically, it was quite defeatist, really, because I get it. I probably looked a bit rough. I get it. You know, I do understand that. I'm not holding it against anyone. I had a shopping bag. I had ripped clothes. You know, it's perception, isn't it? Really, I'm learning that as I get older. And then I saw Rocco Solano sitting there, and I recognized him from the DVDs because the magic shop I used to go used to rent DVDs for very cheap. So I used to watch him all the time, and I would watch his videos on sleeving, and I was really interested in it. And I just basically approached him and started talking to him, and he was so nice, like such a nice man. Anyway, he asked me if I was at the convention. I said, "Oh no, I can't afford it. I'm just outside." And he said, "Show me some magic," and I wasn't very good. And then he basically said, "Oh, let me show you this," and he did the coin in the hand.
Yep.
And then he said, "I'm going to make you do it." And he made me walk up to a lady and go perform it straight away. And I failed. But I went back and I started practicing it. And I did it the next time at the bus stop about 10 minutes later to a friend. I managed to do it and it felt really good. In fact, I performed that trick for the first time in a few years on a friend the other day and they freaked out and I hadn't done that for years. It's such a good trick. But he doesn't do this where, you know, he raises the hand. He just goes, hold it. He has it there. And that's the way he taught me, and that's the way I perform it. It doesn't do this. He just puts it straight on the hand, and it's there. He goes like that, and he goes, boom, it's on your hand. He doesn't take it out of sight, and that's the way I was taught it. So when I later on, anyway, when I saw everyone doing that, the way I was taught was always to do it like that. he has balls of steel, and then he was doing this sleeving stuff, and anyway, I bumped into him by accident in a shop, and he then like said, "Oh, do you want to come meet Ali Bongo?" He said, I'm performing tonight. Do you want to come as my guest?" I went, yeah, I can." And he went, "You can't wear that though." I went, "I don't have many other clothes on my clothes." I was explaining about the fire escape, and then he was like, turned around to his Italian friend and started speaking Italian to him, and then he said, they started laughing, and he just pulled out a bunch of money and went, "Get yourself a suit, and then come meet me here." So I bought myself a suit. I met him, and I stood outside the art center, and I went in there. And then what happened next changed my life of how I perceived magic. Because when we were in there was this guy chatting to him, and there was this young guy, and he was doing that thing that magicians do, where they brag a lot, and you could see that Rocco didn't really like it very much, and he's like, it was annoying him, but he didn't say anything, but you could see it was annoying him. I think this guy was bragging about all the magicians he know. And probably didn't know who Rocco was really. He's a living legend. Anyway, we get to the bar, and he said, "Do you want to see a trick, kid?" And I went, "Yeah." And he did this, and the can of Coke that he just had started moving on the bar, and then he went like that, and it flipped into the bin, and all the magicians went, "Whoa!" And then this kid's like saying, "Well, I say kid, he's the same age as me," but he's like, "How did you do that?" And he's like, "Oh, it's my trick. I'm going to bring it out in a few years. It's my secret." And the kid's like, "Please tell me." And I'm like, just looking at him. I sit down, and now I'm just sat with him and a couple other magicians. And I'm like, how am I allowed to ask you how you did that? And he said to me, "If you look around, there's always magic to be had for free. You just have to look for it." Yeah, I went, "What do you mean?" He went, "Go back to the bar and ask for the can." So I went back to the bar. I said, "This is weird, but can I have that can?" And I put the can on the bar, and I started to notice the can was moving. And what had happened is the fan was on, and there was a trail of water, and the can followed the trail of water and flipped into the bin. And the bartender set it up as a fun game. And Rocco had seen him do it the night before. So when he came in, he saw the same bartender was on, knew that was going to happen, and just made a magic trick out of it.
Wow.
Yeah, it blew my mind at the time. And then I got to meet Ali Bongo, which was crazy because there's me, like a nobody, like shaking hands with Ali Bongo. And he's like so lovely to me. Like everyone's like shaking my hand. And then that magician that I won't name, later on, I'm having dinner with Rocco, and he's again being very kind. Um, Comes and I hadn't mentioned about our bad interaction. I was just talking about how much I enjoyed him. And he said, "How much are your DVDs?" And he said, 25. He said, "Well, I have 20 on me. I'll sort you five out later." And this guy had been gushing over Rocco and like praising him. And he went, "No, it's 25." He went, "Yeah, but I have 20 on me for the kid. I'll give you five later." And he was like, "No." And then Rocco was like, "Then get out and buy. Don't ever speak to me ever again." Um, so, and it's funny because I saw that magician about 10 years later, and he didn't, he said, "Have we met before?" And I just said, "No." And he went, "I just want to say I love your work," which is really funny. So yeah, that was a mad story. I don't really tell that story very often, but basically he said to me, he said, "You have to get out of this town, because if you don't get out of this town, you're never gonna go anywhere." He said, like, "You are so passionate about magic." And he said you might be one of the most passionate magicians I've met. Which was very kind. I'm sure he's met more passionate, but he was very kind. And he said to me, "What do you want to do with your life?" So "I want to perform." He said, "Well, you're gonna have to make money from it. You can't live like the way you're living. It's not healthy." And then at that time, my friend Matt Coleman was working in Illusions Magic Bar, just opened, and he was going on holiday. They needed someone, so I went down and covered him for 2 weeks. Met Mark Bennett, got on really well with Mark, and then he said to me, "Why don't you come and live above the bar and work here full time?" And so I left Southport, and that was there. Mark worked for Mark.
And that's the beginning of the next chapter, because
Yeah.
obviously that's where, I mean, and Mark Bennett is one of the most, yeah, giving magicians in the world. There's so many people who can attribute their careers to Mark.
Oh,
He's so knowledgeable.
very much so. He was always very hard on me, but in a good way. Like, I think when you're
Oh
young,
no, he's a taskmaster. Don't get me wrong.
oh,
If you're not good, he will tell
and
you.
I think he also always expected me to, when I got to a bar and I was like rocking, he was like, "Okay, but like I want you not to do those tricks anymore. You got to do." And at the time, it just felt like punishment at the time. But then you realize that basically, that he's just training you to learn how to adapt to all situations, and all the things I learned at Illusions have helped me in my whole career, in my whole life. If I didn't have Illusions, how to handle heckling, how to handle a loud noise, how to handle when it's so loud you can't talk, all those things, like how to perform when it's so quiet, and then chat, and how to fill in time, and with loads of things that just would be the foundations of my career, really. And I certainly wouldn't really be where I am without Mark Bennett at all. And also Mark Bennett was the reason I got published in the first place, because he told Russ Stevens to look at my work.
That was going to be my next question,
Yeah.
which is obviously I got to know you around about the time that you started working with RSVP. Uh, and I've always known you as a creator, but like, as well as working with Mark Bennett at this point in time, so he gave you a place to live, and he gave you, a place where you can perform and actually go and get paid for performing. You started releasing magic. Now, can you tell me how that happened? And were you always creating magic before that point? Like, because a lot of people, the biggest question I get on this channel is, I want to be a creator. How do I start creating? But a lot of people, when they say I want to be a creator, it's not that they want to create, they want to release a magic trick. They want to be famous. They want to have a product out with their name on it.
Right.
Um, what led to you, because if you'd been introduced to Russ Stevens and you had nothing original, he would have gone, nope. So, like, can you tell me what happened from you as a creator point of view?
Well, Mark was always obsessed that everyone had to be unique. I used to do a trick where I produce a brick from my hat, and most people, when you hear about that story, they produce half a brick, but I didn't know that was the story. I heard a story about a magician called Gordon Bruce that would produce a brick. I just presumed it was a full brick, and I would later on, when I met him, he would tell me, "Oh no, it was only half a brick," but everyone else filled in the story with the brick. So I built a holster to hold a brick, and I would walk around with a brick on strapped to my back at all times. So if I wanted to, I could just produce a brick. Um, So I wasn't really thinking about it as a I'm going to create. I was just thinking about what could I do to be different from all the other magicians I was working with, and probably like trying to impress Mark all the time. So it's like, what can I do? And I was reading books, and I had a residency, and I started playing around with the block of ice because I was doing the brick from the hat, and then I found that the block of ice, as cool as it was, pardon the pun, it never really. And this would be where magicians disagree. They'll go, "Oh, it's the way you did it," and I get that. We all have our feelings of that. But I produced a block of ice from my hat a bunch of times, and I never felt like the reactions were that great from a block of ice. Don't get me wrong; they weren't like poor, but I knew they could be better. And then also carrying a block of ice around was a nightmare. A big block, and I had a strap and a thing in my back. But then I started like miniaturizing it. But then I realized if I produced a small block of ice, that wasn't impressive either. So I found that a size where it was big enough to not be from the bar, but big enough to be impressive. And then it was just figuring out how to produce it. And at the time, I was obsessed with flash paper, so I started playing around with the flash paper thing, and it kind of just grew from just being experimenting and not really thinking there was any limits of what you had to do as a magician. I didn't. I guess because I had illusions, I never really thought about reset in the same sense as a magician would, because I wasn't working close up magic. I was working bar magic. I just could do what I wanted. And then when I was doing close up magic, I just took enough to do it. And if I had to go back to my bag, I go back to my bag. I never thought it as a big deal, really. When I think about how insane that is, but I was obsessed. I would carry like beans with me that were hot, and a plate, and a boiled egg, and a sausage and toast, and I would produce a whole breakfast just randomly, not even and then I would open up the beans and it'd be hot. And I never really thought of that being excessive. I just thought I want to do this abstract magic. I mean, for a little while when I was doing walk around magic, I was doing Kuda Bucks's blindfold routine in close up. When Smoke and Mirrors opened, I did this whole thing on the interpretive dance. I don't know what I was thinking, and then I had a poet and a guitar player, and I was just doing all this very experimental performance style, and Mark was okay with it.
I mean, that's so cool. That's so you. But that's what I meant earlier when I talked about you revolutionizing close-up magic, because before you bought the first DVD out with Russ Stevens, a lot of people viewed close-up magic as, not everybody, but the vast majority of workers were, it has to be instantly reset. It has to be, it has to be something that fits in your pocket that you can, And I remember, after you brought out that DVD, now all of a sudden people were going out and spending hours putting cards in candy bars and chocolate bars. They were carrying around, I'm pretty sure you were the person that were responsible for the success of Chubba Chub lollies, because every magician in the world was buying thousands of lollies to produce at weddings, and all of this stuff that you're producing blocks of ice and everything. You did that. You were the person that kind of made that popular.
Well, because when I was young, you would always see those girls in back in the day. You would go to a nightclub and they have lollies, and then you buy the lolly for the gal, and then you see guys trying to give the lollies to the gal to pick up the gals, and the girls are eating the lollies. It was this thing back in the early 2000s. So my brain just went, well, if I just buy a pack of lollies, I could just still do that thing. And then I thought, well, that's not very cool. What if I just set it on fire and produce it? And then it was basically a way of trying to meet girls, and it didn't work. But it was to be honest, it was my own fault, because if any girl did show any interest, I'd be so busy trying to perform magic to everyone else that I didn't care anyway. It was just like my focus was I just get distracted by performing.
That's the thing. And you can just tell from anybody who's been watching this for any length of time at this point, they can tell that you love magic. I mean, that's one of the things that's coming across again and again and again. You love magic, right?
I do. I like it. It's my first love, really. Well, obviously my wife's my first love with my kids, but like it was the first thing I felt like where I connected.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I could just sit in my room doing magic all day. It doesn't pay the bills, unfortunately, but I could just sit there and do it to myself. I have a lot of fun doing that.
That's so cool. So you're working at Smoke and Mirrors. You're performing at Smoke and Mirrors. Sorry, not Smoke and Mirrors, Illusions, and so Flight Time. Oh my God, yes, and then some. You're doing your odd private gig. You said you had a residency, so you're doing some private stuff as well, and you're now known as a creator because you brought out. I mean, people probably don't realize this if they're new into magic, but at that time, it was a big deal getting a DVD with Ross Stevens. If you managed to get a project through RSVP, Russ Stevens Video Production, you were a made man, right? That put you up in the upper echelon, and you had that DVD with him at that point. So, two questions on this. This is kind of a nice situation for you to be in because you're known as a creator. You're not having no problem getting into conventions anymore. I'm fairly sure you're going to be paid to lecture in conventions. And I remember seeing you on the booth, the RSVP booth, I think at Blackpool a couple of times. So you've got all that going on. You're working at Illusions. Two questions: what happened after then? Did you carry like how did you balance the role of being a creator and being a performer, because that's something a lot of people struggle with. Like, if you're a creator and a performer, what do you focus on? What's the thing that you're most passionate about? But also, the other thing that we know you for is regurgitation, which kind of really put you on the map. Now, I didn't see any sign of that in your early work, but obviously that really put you on the map at a certain point. Where did that come into the story?
Oh, we'll get into that. And I mean, do you want me to go into that now? Because so what most people don't realize. So I was always doing the regurgitation. It's just that no one was interested in the regurgitation. So do you remember the first time you did lads? Like in
Yeah.
that whole, I did regurgitation. I did my linking polo routine, some coin stuff, and I did a water spouting thing. And I remember the reaction I got from performing in that was a mix of that is disgusting and people telling me how disgusting I am, and then to people also like loving it. And it was a very divided thing. But I've been doing the regurgitation since I was 8, maybe 7, and that was my party trick in the Navy when we I would do the regurgitation. So my party trick was always I would swallow 3 objects then bring them back, because when I was a little boy, I was sick a lot, and my stepdad got me this book on tape called Memoirs of a Sword Swallower, and I would listen to that, and it would talk about the human ostrich, and he could swallow things, and I'd realized I could do the same thing, and I would listen to what the tricks he did. I didn't know at the time. I only found this out 3 months ago. This is the craziest thing. I was trying to find that story on tape so I could play it to my son, and I said, I love this story. It's one of the best stories I ever heard. I thought it was a fake story. I've always thought that it was a made up story because it was in the kids section of the library. So I thought it was a bit weird when I think about it, because it was all about sword swallowing and freaks and the circus lifestyle. But I never realized till recently that it turns out when I Googled it, it was £200 to buy the tape. You can't get it on audio, and it's a true story.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't know that. So this whole thing that like kind of made me, yeah. And when I think about like when I say I didn't like magic, in the sense, I guess like when I think about it now, there's magic tricks in that story that I did do at school, like our Q&A and one I had, but I never really thought of it being magic. I don't know why, but like I kind of there was things I did, but I never really thought I was of being a magician. When I think about it, I never connected that and magic in my brain, because they weren't magicians. They were sideshow artists, con men. So my brain never thought, they never said they were magicians in that story. They were like, this is the carny life, this is the con man's life. So I never really put those together. Yeah, the human ostrich would swallow 3 silks and then bring them back different colors, which is a Haji Ali who he's referring to. He's basically referencing Haji Ali without saying Haji Ali's name. I didn't know that at the time. So I had this party trick. I would do at school all the time, do it to my friends. It was just a thing I was known for. And then I do it at parties. And it was only when I was in the pub again, I was with a bunch of magicians, and they said, again, this is before I published. They said, can you do, we have to do something, but something that's not a magic trick, something you can do. And I said, all right, write A, B, C on these nuts. And I swallowed them. I went, what do you want, B, C, or A? And I did it for them, and they all screamed. And I did this before I even knew who Stevie Star was. This is just something I had as a trick, as a thing. So I never, again, when I did it to the magicians and they all freaked out, my brain was like, why are they freaking out? Because in my mind, it's not magic. It's just something I could do. I never thought of it as magic. Oh, I've lost you on the sound. Sorry, Craig, I've lost you on the sound. Don't know what's going on.
That's fine. So we got to the end of that. Okay, so hang on. Give me a Okay, so I mean that's fascinating, but in terms of the regurgitation, like at one point you became really famous for it. So at some point you kind
Yeah.
of decided to go, well, actually, no, this is magic. Nobody else is doing it. This can be my thing, right?
Uh, Again, it happened by accident. So I was performing at the Revolutionising, the session when it was in Cheltenham, and Andy kind of took me aside and said, "This is a bit disgusting. Like some people aren't into this." And I went, but I wasn't aware because everyone was recording me and everyone was loving it. But I think they found it a bit. I'm sure they probably won't remember it like this, but they were like, "Oh, we're just a bit concerned." I went, "Oh, I was water spouting in the lobby." And so when I think about it, at the time, no one really knew what water spouting was. So it was just like, this guy he's a bit crazy. We don't really know him. He does crazy stuff. And I went, oh, I'm really sorry. And they went, no, don't worry, it's fine. And I anyway, I did that for the weekend, and that was fine. And then we now fast forward to David Blaine coming on telly, and then he suddenly goes, "Oh, I does this water spout?" As my DMs blow up because now all these magicians are asking me, "How did you learn this?" Suddenly, this skill I've done at conventions, which was kind of people liked but kind of weren't too sure about, suddenly they all want to know how I did it, how was I doing it, could I teach them? Suddenly, the skill I had that I've been doing for years became valuable. Um,
That's crazy, right? That's
It's
really cool.
crazy. Well, I remember Steve Rowe, like if you can find someone, I was like, someone went, "Oh, isn't this amazing?" And Steve Rowe writes, "Well, I've seen Kieron do this a million times." like, like I've been in his house doing it for him, and he was like, "Yeah, I see Kieron does that." Fine. And I think that was only not many people really knew about that. Like, so and then the hilarious thing is then how I got really well known for it was Andy asked me to perform it at the session.
That's crazy.
Yeah. When you talk about full circle moment, next thing I know, I'm at the session lecturing and performing the regurgitation. And I've never done it in a show before. I've just done it as this thing I do. And yeah, it went. I got a standing ovation, which was amazing with Danny Buckler and Chad Long. And I remember Rune Clan was after me, and he came back. I just looked at me and went, "How do I follow that?" Because I did this whole act, which was funny, really. So and that and then after that, I got noticed, and then next thing I know, Germany magicians are asking me to lecture, and people in China are asking me to lecture, and people are asking me to do the human fountain and the regurgitation in shows. You know?
And so that leads you to the next point in your career because you blew up as a creator, like you really blew up as a creator and as a lecturer and as a performer at conventions and so on and so forth. So in order to do that and travel the world doing that side of things, you obviously left Illusions at that point. Is that right?
Yeah, I'd already been gone from Illusions for a few years because what happened with Illusions was I was getting so busy, and I couldn't give Mark any time anymore, and he just said maybe it's time for you to move on. And it wasn't like a firing or a thing; it was just a parting of ways
Yeah.
because I was busy, and I couldn't give him any time anymore. And I think he could see that when I was there, I probably wasn't as committed as I once was because
Yeah.
it's very hard, So it was probably a good thing in a way because I had at that time I had like 7 residencies a week. I was performing magic conventions. I was lecturing. I was all over the place. So it was going well, I guess.
So
So
you've gone from living in effectively like nothing, living a very minimalistic lifestyle, to just a few years later, literally traveling the world, being paid to perform and lecture and teach magicians your original creations and things that in the past, the conventions you'd been shunned for. I mean, that must be a good feeling, right? That must be.
I didn't really think of it as like oh, I'm going to show you. I just thought I understood. I've always kind of been like the guy that does the weird stuff that isn't like I think even when my friend Sap said the group of magicians were talking about me the other day, and they said, "Oh yeah, that's that bubble guy," I started laughing. So people have this perception of me as one thing, which is interesting. So no, I didn't really think like that. I was just thinking I'm so grateful for the opportunities and getting to go to China and perform in Japan, and it was a big deal for me.
Okay, that's amazing. And in order to take those opportunities, did you have to kind of cut down on your residences and your work over here in the UK? Was that like a thing that you had to do?
Well, what was really nice is none of them wanted me to leave, so they just let me take the time off when I needed because they
Oh,
just liked
brilliant.
having me. So it was I had a really supportive network. Um, I only started like maybe losing the residencies when management would change and the management would go, "Oh, we don't want a magician anymore," and they wouldn't get to know you. So that's how I stopped doing more residency work because it wasn't really at one place. I was there for 7 years, and then management changed. We're going in a different direction. But that was fine because I was doing okay anyway. My life was moving on, and I guess I just wasn't really worrying about it. I was just figuring maybe this is a bad attitude. I was thinking something will come along, or I'll do something else. I didn't really have a plan. I was just kind of going with where it went.
That's amazing. But for
It's
somebody who
probably
hasn't
bad.
had a plan, you've achieved so much. Like there's a lot of people that plan and don't get to do half of what you do.
Well, I don't even give out business cards. I won't take a gig from someone I've met, or I don't know of. Isn't recommended. So I'm quite picky as that. My wife tells me off because I feel like I only want to work for people that know who I am, which is a bad way of doing it, really. Occasionally, I've done gigs for magician friends when they've asked me, and I've always felt those gigs aren't as good as the gigs I get when they do know me, because I prefer it when people know about who I am, even if the whole guests don't know who I am, the person that, but because then I don't feel like I have to restrain who I am as a person. You know,
Yeah.
I can be an artist rather than be like, if I pull out a rubber glove, I'm going to offend someone. Where they know who I am. Not that I'm offensive, but if I want to do the polo routine or if I want to do some of the regurgitation I used to get them to put a glove in my mouth. And it's funny because I'm not doing any of that now. But there was a time where I was like obsessed with that type of style of performance.
That's crazy. Now, obviously, for those people that don't know, it wasn't just RSVP that you released with. You then went on to release Magic with a whole bunch of other people, a whole
Yeah,
bunch of other companies. Illusionist you worked with.
yeah,
Um, and then for a period of time, and this is where my knowledge of your career gets fuzzy. I know that you worked very closely with Steve Rowe. I also know that you spent some time working with Saturn Magic, and I also know that you obviously kind of really during the lockdown, I think took a very serious kind of you really started focusing on social media. And that's where you started doing a lot of the lolly stuff. That's why you had Steve Rowe there. That's where you did a lot of the bubble stuff. I don't know how all this fits together. Could you give us
but
like a timeline
you,
of all of this?
you're gonna laugh again by accident. It wasn't planned. Everyone says, "Oh, you did this social media thing." I went, "It was." I just kind of was just bored. So basically, how it all began is my daughter Ellie. She has Down syndrome, and she's 6 now. And I started reading about bubbles and sensory, and I started. My friend Alex had bought me a bubble kit for Christmas and put a note, "Your new obsession," as a joke. Um, and I didn't really look at it, to be honest. But when Ellie came along, it was quite stressful because she was in intensive care for a bit, and then she was on oxygen for the longest time at home, and she didn't really move, and we weren't too sure where that was going really. So I just started blowing bubbles for her one day, and it was the first time we saw her react and laugh, and it was amazing. And honestly, you want that feeling as a father, and I'm me, so I started blowing more bubbles, But obviously I ran out of bubble formula. So now I was like, how do I make bubble formula? So now I'm trying to figure that out. And then I'm like, how do I blow a bubble? And there's not really much on it. So I'm just kind of figuring it out myself. And then I remember the bubble kit, and there's instructions on, oh, you can make a square. Oh, you can blow a bubble. How do you do this? And I'm like, this is crazy. And that became like my new focus for fun. And most people don't know this. I didn't post videos for the first part of lockdown for about 3 or 4 months. Again, it was only when my friend's wife, she saw I would make these videos for people to cheer them up. And she was like saying, oh, you should post these videos. And I started posting them, and no one watched them. And I was in this magic group, and everyone's doing magic, and there's me doing bubbles. And they're all laughing because they were like, why didn't you do magic? I went, no, I'm going to do bubbles. This is going to be my thing. I'm going to do it. And I remember being in the group, like what the first guy got to 100K, the other guys were going to 25K. And my videos, 20 views, 30 views, 40 views, 50 views, 100 views. So it wasn't really going very well. But, you know, it was fun. And then I did this video where Gordon Ramsay was like, can you duet a video with me? And I'm like, well, what could I do with a bubble? That would be fun. So I thought, I looked at Dustin Sky's work, and he had a really cool thing with gas and fire. So I thought, well, what if I started cooking with a bubble? That sounds like a cool idea. So I made a video where I cook with a bubble, and I make a marshmallow, and I basically, can you cook with a bubble? And I basically cook a marshmallow with it. And that video went to a few million. And then got the ball rolling. And then, so I kept going, and for 6 months, I got 20K. And then I did this video where I talked about called My Superhuman Abilities. And I did this thing where I make smoke come out of my mouth. So I show my mouth empty and talking, and then I make billows of smoke come out of my mouth. And in the video, it's fluky, but because my eye isn't straight, I've got a wonky eye. When the light hits it, it glows. And just and not all the time, just the light. So in that video, if I can find it for you, I'll send it to you. You can see it. My eye actually starts glowing.
Wow.
So and then I accidentally used a trending song that I didn't know was trending, which was the Avengers song. I didn't know. I just chose it because it was a superhero song. And then I put it too loud, so people are like, "Oh, can't I hear you?" And I put this whole thing about David Blaine making me eat a carrot, which is a true story. And I just put all these random things on it, and that video changed my life. It went from I went from 20,000 followers to 280,000 followers in 24 hours. And that video really, in without being rude, it did 8 million views. But really, it's only 8 million sounds a lot, and it is. But I've had videos that have done 100 million that didn't get that many followers. That video, like in terms of what it did for my following, because I think suddenly like, who's this weird guy? And then I started doing, that was so popular, that series, that I had to start doing more for it. So I started doing the lollipop carving.
Yeah, I remember seeing videos of you where you were like doing the most crazy, insane lollipop sculptures. Like it was mad.
But
yeah.
because and I started doing that as an X-Men ability, and that blew up, and I did a series of that. And then everyone else jumped on the bandwagon with that afterwards, because it's not that it hadn't been on the internet before. No one had made it go viral. And what I'd done is I had stripped it down. I took it away from the cleverness of pick a card, or I just took it to, this is my skill. Boom. Because when Steve worked on that, and I worked on with him with that trick, that's how I always presented it anyway. I never presented it as pick a thing. I never liked it. I always presented it as real, and I thought that's what I'm going to do. And then so that did really well. But then what really blew up my channel was the Immortal Bubble series. It's where I had a bubble that lives in my house, and no matter what I do to the bubble, it doesn't pop. So I hit it with a hammer, it doesn't pop. I put a Hoover in it, I throw an anvil, a brick, and I'm screaming, the bubble doesn't pop. And people love that. And then I noticed that they were talking about anime, so I started watching the anime they referenced. And then I started copying all the anime abilities, and I just adapted to the audience. And before I had a million followers, I went live, and people were really kind. And then one of those videos went viral on Instagram, and one of the producers from the Box, which is this place in Soho, saw me and invited me to come in and do an audition of Bubbles. And if you know that place isn't a place for Bubbles. I still, to this day, I have no idea why they asked me to come in for do an audition on Bubbles. Honestly, it's an old style cabaret shock place. It's where you go to watch shock acts, like the most extreme shock acts you've ever seen. You've never seen anything like it. It's lots of wealthy people who watch a late night cabaret show. That's two sets that are 30 minutes, and you watch these really interesting arty musicality shock acts. Why the why did why did my friend, she's my friend now, why did my friend think that was going to work? And I turn up and I have no idea, and I've never done Bubbles on stage. Lockdown's just finished. Never done Bubbles on stage. Haven't got a clue how to do Bubbles. And I'm like, not professionally anyway. Like, so I'm like nervous. I've set up all this equipment on this stage, and I start doing a bubble act for 10 minutes, and I can see that no one is interested. And I pack my stuff away, and they've been doing auditions. There's a pack of cards on the table. They said, "Oh, I do a bit of magic." Yeah, and they went, "Oh, we had a magician. He left the cards here." I went, "Oh, I do a bit of magic," and I did a couple of tricks for them. And the producer goes, "Just out of curiosity, is there anything else you can do?" I went, "Oh yeah, I can do this weird thing. Do you want to see it?" So I did the regurgitation, and he was like, "Why did you not do that?" Oh, well, you never asked. And he said, "We don't have anything like that, do we?" I went, "No." He went, "Would you like a job?" we want someone downstairs that can do magic and also freak show stuff for downstairs. They put me down, and I said, "Oh yeah, well this is like I used to do at Illusions." And the guy went, "Oh, Illusions! I went there when I was young in uni." He said, "I love that place." He said, "Oh, you're from there?" I went, "Oh." He said, "Oh, you'll be great here." So that's funny that Illusions would follow me. The reputation of Illusions was in this place. This guy,
and that's where you are right now, isn't it?
Well, I'm kind of there, but I'm not really there anymore. I'm still there for them, but I don't do every weekend and day for them, mainly just because they don't want to burn me out. So I kind of just do when they need me now. If I wanted to, I could go back every week and they would have me, but I'm doing so. So this brings me into my next thing. So then, obviously, I worked there for 4 years, and they needed a magician for the show I'm in. So the Box is for I'm in a Come Alive, The Greatest Showman, which is basically The Greatest Showman, but with circus, which is fantastic. The acts are amazing in that. And so basically, the one of the directors there, one of the producers of our show was producing over there for the circus show, because also the Box has some of the best circus shows you'll see. They have Circus Soleil performers. Some of the stuff I've seen is amazing. And the cool thing is, it used to be the Raymond Review Bar, and the coolest thing about it is I used to do stage stuff. But what excites me the most is that Finn John used to do magic on that stage. So I've literally stood on and performed on the same stage as Finn John, which I love, which is like that's the best thing for me. Whenever I stand on that stage and I perform on that, it's like, Finn John's been on here. And they were really cool. Like they would let me experiment again. It was a very like arty place. They got me the the illusion where you lie on it and then it stabs through you.
The audience acupuncture.
Yeah. So they put you on it and then they spin you around.
Yeah. Oh, okay, different one. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
I never remember what it's called. Scott Penrose rented us it for the week, so I did that on there for Halloween. But what they would do is they would bring me out of the audience, like they would sacrifice me, because one of the things they do is they bring audience members up and they do a weird thing. So and then they call it an interstitiation. So they did an interstitiation with me. So people thought I was part of the act, and then I penetrate. So one of the things I had to learn to do was I had to learn to regurgitate while planking, lying down. So when it went through me, I would regurgitate all the blood up into the ceiling. So I'm pretty sure I'm the only magician in the world to perform that illusion with regurgitation.
Jesus Christ.
And like blood would get everywhere. I would like go to town and would like go up, and the crowd would go crazy because they're like, and people go, "That special effects looks real." I'm like, "Well, it is real. It's not a special effect." But anyway, so I'm getting how I got to the Come Alive show. So they needed a magician to teach one of the actors magic, and obviously they know my background is teaching as well. So they asked me to go and teach, and it didn't really work out for the one of the actors, unfortunately. It just so they asked me if I could just do the first 2 weeks of the show, just do the pre-show part of the show. So I said, yeah, no problem. Then they said, oh, can you stay for another week? And I went, yeah. He said, we got a new actor. So then I was going to teach him, but then he was just busy in rehearsals and doing things, and it just never really worked out. And then they were like, well, why don't you just do the weekends to March? So I went, okay, cool. So I was like doing that in the box. So it was all good. And then by the time we got to March, they now had a bubble show they didn't expect to have on the stage, which they helped me write and develop. I had like a card show where I was doing it in the tent. They had me doing other bits. So they're like, well, we don't really want to lose you. Can you stay to September? But can you now work full time? And then I'm like, okay, cool. And then so actually we decided we're going to just give you that whole space and you can just do all the shows on it. So if you can do like a magic show and a bubble show on it, that'd be great. So and that's it. That's kind of where I'm at now.
That's amazing. That's
It's a bit
amazing.
of bit of a mad journey when I think about
It
it.
is a mad journey. I want to before we go further, because I've got a couple of questions for you. Let me
Yeah,
just let me just reverse and go back, because obviously anybody who's not aware of this side of you would think that you've disappeared from the magic community, because you were a very prolific creator, and we talked about how you were lecturing all over the world. But since almost like since lockdown or just after lockdown, your
yeah,
focus has been there. You've not really been creating magic. So just to fill in the timeline, I mentioned it before, but you did work at Saturn Magic at some point, didn't you?
yeah, and that was really good. And Mark and his family was so lovely to me. And I'm not like cut ties with them. I think if I released another trick and said I had something, he'd jump on it in a heartbeat. But I'm just not looking to create commercially at the moment, because where I'm at with my magic is I just felt like I got trapped into having to create commercial magic.
Yeah.
And I think when you get trapped into that, it sucks all the artistry out. I'm so I am still creating, and I've got new moves and techniques I've created, and Matthew Garrett wants me to release some of my ring moves I've created, which he's been very kind. He's very excited, and I will release some more magic, and I'm still working on my second book and stuff. But I just think for me, my focus is my magic has changed again, and a lot of the stuff I work on now, it really isn't commercial in the sense of commercial. You know, it's stuff that I've come up to solve a problem for myself. And I think some of the stuff, like some of the tricks I have, people would like, but I've written them for myself. And I guess that's what I did in the beginning of my career. I wrote for myself, and it just so happened that they translated to other magicians. But now I think the stuff I'm writing for myself doesn't really translate in the same way. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is something that translates, but you know, for me, I'm
So
just
my,
doing my thing.
so my question is, what do you prefer? Like, do you prefer, when you look back at that period in your life where you were going around conventions, going to China, going to Germany, going all over, being, performing on the main stage at the session, lecturing to thousands of people in many cases, and then you look at where you are now, where you're performing at literally like one of the biggest shows that's currently taking place in London as like one of the top acts. I mean, it's successful. Both things that you've achieved are successful, but they're both completely opposite in terms of what it demands from you as a performer, as an artist. Like, which one did you prefer, or which one do you prefer?
I don't really have a preference. I don't really think of them as separate things. I'm the same person, right? So I'm just at this phase where I'm just doing my thing. And my wife keeps thinking that at some point I'll return to creating. I mean, you took a break from creating. It happens, you know?
Yeah, for a decade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know,
But
I
that's
think
the thing with the community. I had somebody post on Reddit the other day, and they said, Craig vanished for the Magic community and went into hiding for 10 years. And I'm like, didn't really go into hiding. I was actually built
you're
my
working.
business. I was busy performing, but I just wasn't visible in the Magic community. But I think that that's the perception that sometimes magicians have. If you're not in the spotlight, you've vanished, you've gone, you're not there anymore.
Yeah, and I think I can see that. And I think also for me, I'm not too sure how this new stuff I've got translates for a modern magician in this current market. You know, they're things that like I think you would like them, Lloyd would like them, and there are magicians that would like them, but are they commercial? I'm not too sure that I'm as I would say that my work at the moment is very not commercial. It's commercial for me, but I mean, it's funny because as I said, I spent the first 10 years of my career talking about how we have to push the envelope and take as much with us. And there's me going to my New Year's Eve gig with a linking rings, some forks, and a pack of cards and a pen. So, and then and I didn't even do the fork bending. Like I just did linking rings a couple of times and mainly did some cards and told stories and chatted to people. And I think to myself, oh, have I sold out by doing that stuff? But I think there's also a power in just being able to sit with an audience and just chat and be expressive in a different way.
Yeah.
You
And that's the
know,
thing. You evolve over time, don't you? Your approach to magic, your approach to performing, your approach to, your art changes over time. As you,
yeah, I think so. And what I'm enjoying is I'm enjoying doing card magic and I'm enjoying doing classic magic pots and making them exciting for people, you know. And I like that, and I like not feeling like I'm being. I don't weirdly while I would probably be considered commercial 40, 50 years ago, even probably in the 80s. No, I probably wouldn't be considered commercial in the 80s. I would probably be considered commercial in the 50s and 60s. And so it's funny, I am doing a commercial style. It's just not in fashion.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
I'm always out of fashion, or ahead of fashion. I don't know, but I've never in fashion. Weirdly, I'm just always kind of doing my thing.
That's funny.
Um,
So,
yeah.
look, you have been so successful at everything that you've achieved, and the thing is, a lot of business experts and a lot of experts will tell you that the most important thing is goal setting, and you've got to have a clear vision of where you're wanting to go. One thing I'm getting from this interview is you have no fucking clue what you've done your entire life. It feels like you're just falling into one like
Yeah. I mean,
opportunity, and then you're just very good at taking opportunities, saying yes and making it work. But like what would you say to that? Like because what you've achieved is incredible, but it flies against most advice that business experts would give you.
well, I think like everyone always says, be yourself, right? And how many people do it? Like, so without being rude, we go, I'm myself. But are you like, I guess the thing is, I've got a very supportive wife and I have a really good foundation and I'm very lucky to have all the things I have now. But I have a really good foundation and I have a wife that believes in me. And she's always like, she's not money driven. She's not, we're not, we're not obsessed with objects, you know. So because of that, there's a freedom in that. Obviously, you need money, but we're not like that. Isn't my goal. It never really has been. It's not my wife's goal either. Like our goal is just try and be good people if we can, and that's not always easy because sometimes you get things wrong when you don't mean to be. Um, but yeah, I think yeah, I've had no plan. Um, but then I guess in a way I've always kind of like fallen into the next thing, or I don't know how it happens. Uh, I guess likability. I don't know. I think some my friend said to me, he goes, "Oh, you're lucky," but I'm like, well, I don't know if I'm lucky because I work hard for it, but maybe there's luck in there. I don't know, a bit of both. I'm not
Yeah.
sure. I don't know what my advice is for someone because
I was going
my
to say,
advice.
what advice if somebody who want they're watching this, their goal is to be super successful in this industry and achieve what the type of things that you've achieved. Can you give any advice to those people on what they should be doing?
I don't know. I mean, the best advice I got in magic was do the tricks I enjoy, and that was the best advice. Do the things I love, and that's what I've done. I've always just done the stuff I love, and then I moved on to something else I love. And I think the hardest bit is the last year is having to be a bit more commercial. I hated being commercial at first. I'm like, no lollipops, no fire, no ice. But actually, it's liberating, right? Because I had to prove to myself that I could. I had chops in other ways. Can I make a card trick entertaining? And what can I do to that? And I started speaking in third person when I perform, which is fun. And like if someone's a heckler, I just don't listen to them. I don't try and be smart or clever back. Um, or and one of the nice things about the box was if someone was rude to me and really rude, I could just walk off and no one would say anything, and I got more respect doing that. I walked into a room with the guy that owned it, and one of his guests said something to me about the way I looked, and I said, "I'm not going to perform for you." And he went, "No, you have to." I went, "I don't have to do anything." And he went, "Well, he's the boss," and my boss just loved it. It's like, so having the freedom of people around you that are allowing you to know your worth as a human. Because I think sometimes as magicians it can be quite hard, can't it? We try to win or subservient. And I think when I was younger and working at Illusions, I was obsessed with winning. But now I don't worry about that anymore. Although if someone isn't into me, then that's okay.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I think I went on a random tangent, but I guess what I'm trying to say is just remember that ultimately it's just a magic trick, and that's it. And if it don't work, it don't work, or if you don't connect, you don't connect. But you've always got another audience, and there's always more people, and there's always more opportunities to grow. And the great thing about being experimental is you will fail. And I think one of the things I learned from the sideshow world is not if it goes wrong, it's when it goes wrong. And I
Yeah.
think that's a common thing from there. And I've also been very lucky to be around great performers, like the people at the box. They're some of the best performers. They might not be mainstream or commercial, but they're incredible. They can perform to music and do the weirdest things and create a story in 4 or 5 minutes and blow your mind. And you'll go, and you can look at it as, oh, that's gross. But you can also then look at the undertones of why did they do that? What was the meaning behind that? It
Yeah.
feels very arty, but there is a lot more to these things than just, so I've been around great people. I think the craziest thing that happened to me is I was working at the box and I performed completely silent when I was doing close up upstairs because it's dark and it's loud. And I just had a torch in my mouth and I was walking up to tables and getting standing ovations without saying anything. And the craziest was when Teller came in and followed me around the tables for an hour. Just walked around the tables with me for an hour.
That's mad.
Yeah, that was the maddest thing. I had a torch in my mouth. Teller just stood there. It was like I was being auditioned. He was just watching me. And he said, I really like watching you. I went, oh, thank you. Like, you have a great rhythm. I went, oh, thanks. So that's it. That was weird. So
That's
that's
mad.
yeah. So I think that if I give any advice, is just don't worry about things like if it's gonna like I know it's easy for me to say, but like if you're gonna make content, make the content, put it out there, see what works, and if it don't work, take it down, shorten it, find that you can push to it works. But don't be a clone and don't expose magic if you can help. You don't need to expose magic to be a good magician.
No, I completely agree with that. 1000%. Do you do
It's
you still do you still do the social media magic, or are you too busy
um
doing the other stuff now?
I feel like I'm bragging. I still do like 10 to 20 million views every month. I
Wow.
just keep, but like they're bubble videos, on Facebook and stuff, and I occasionally post on TikTok when I can be bothered. But I mostly focus on my Facebook, because that I make a revenue from there. But yeah, basically between 7 and 20 million most months. So yeah,
Wow.
I think I'm at 1 billion views now overall. On all if I combined all my channel total, which is pretty
So,
bad.
so I got one last question for you. Like,
Yeah.
as somebody that's not goal driven, this is probably the worst question to ask you, but I'm going to try it anyway. Is there anything left on your magical bucket list that you want to achieve? Because you've achieved so much, and I know it's not been planned, but it still happened. And just let's take a snapshot of where you are right now. Very respected performer. Um, millions and millions of views on social media every single week. Performing at one of the most high profile gigs that you can get as a magician, being given carte blanche. Yeah, yeah, do whatever you want to. Here's your own space. Do with it what you. I mean, that's just insane. Like, you are in a position right now that most magicians would dream of. It's incredible. Like, what is there anything left that you want to do, or?
No, I mean, I'd like to perform at the castle. I mean, I messaged him a couple of times, and he basically never got back to me. So I connected to one of John Armstrong, and then I got a message back from him. He said, "Stop asking people to get you into the castle because it's never going to happen." So that would be cool, but they don't seem to want me for some weird reason. I'm not sure what I did. I think it's because people have this perception of me that I'm going to come and I'm going to regurgitate. They don't think I can do card stuff, so or coins or rings. I think I'm one of those people that people just think of one thing, which is interesting, really, because the reason I've had this is the advice I give. Don't just learn magic, learn another skill. If you yo-yo, learn the juggle, learn another skill. If you can one of the best benefits now in modern society is being able to do a skill, yeah, another passion, because obviously magic is great, but like one of the big draws for me, like is the fact that I can do bubbles to a high level on stage. But if I didn't want to do the bubble show and I wanted to do a yo-yo show, because I let the yo-yo during the lockdown, they would be okay. So if you could learn like a different skill, that would be my advice. Don't just focus on one type of magic. I mean, there's definitely beautiful. If you are an amazing card magician and card magic is your thing, there's nothing wrong with that. It's wonderful to watch. But if you can multi-skill, that's going to be a real for any performance, especially if you're doing stage. If you can multi-skill, it's going to be good for you. And don't get me wrong, I do commercial magic as well on stage. I do my own magic, which is commercial. So it's not like I'm doing anything too different. When I'm doing my close-up magic, then definitely doing more of my own thing. But my advice would be is try and mix up the skills. Don't get focused on one thing, because if you have a multi-skill, like I'm learning to palm read at the moment, because I'm aware that I'm old. I'm going to get old, and I'm not going to be able to like do the stuff. But everyone likes a wise mystic, right? So if I get to 60 and I can do palm reading and tarot, that's going to be great for me. I'm going to still have work so I'm not really thinking about what I'm going to do next. And my next thing is just looking at that for fun.
You seem to like just pick a subject and be very good at it. Like, that was incredible advice, but in there you just kind of offhandedly said, "Oh yeah, I could do a yo-yo show." I mean, how did that come from? Like, you seem to have these incredible abilities that you just go, "Oh, I'll have a go at that." Which is why I know you're probably in 2 years' time going to have the greatest second deal of all time, because you've decided you want to do that. Like, that's that level of dedication, that level of commitment, that level of, well, let's be honest, obsession is very rare amongst any type of performer, magicians or anybody.
Well, I want to be a master one day, Craig, and I'm not there, not by a longest thing. I don't think there's many master magicians around at the moment. And Jonathan Neal, I would consider a master magician, but there's not many. They are around, but like a true master, and I want to be like that when I'm older. Like, I want to hit that level. But even if no one knows I ever did it, I want to do it. It's not about fame. I don't want to be remembered in that way, but I just want to know that I did my best.
Wow.
So it's
Wow.
just for my own satisfaction. It's not because I think that's the other thing I would say is I don't do magic for anyone really other than myself now. Like, I'm choosing to go the harder path. I'm doing any card at any number as my first trick on the table. And it took me ages to figure out how to present that because it can be quite boring, really. Like, it's a lot of counting. It's like, and you watch someone like Graham Jolly and he'll go, this is the boring part, and he fills it in with jokes. But I didn't want to fill it with jokes. I wanted to make it like special, like that counting meant something, that it was that we were building up to an impossibility, not filling it with time because this was the dead bit. So one of the things I've been thinking about lately is I just tell lay people that there's tricks that magicians love and they go mad for and would have obsessive, and I can show you that stuff, but it could be considered there's a lot of counting and it might not be that exciting for you. And to be honest, I'm not really meant to tell you this stuff anyway, so you probably don't want to see that. Oh, I could just do a commercial trick, which you'll love and everyone will love, but it won't be that. And then normally they're like, I let them choose. They go, you do that? Are you sure? Because there's a lot of counting. And then they're like, okay, don't tell anyone I did this for you. And then I make that really interesting and special. And now I'm suckering them into liking magician tricks that magicians do, but they're having a nice time doing it as well. And they're also understanding that this is not traditional magic. This is hard magic. Not that there's because the argument is, does an audience member know the difference between a skilled magician and not a skilled magician? I remember James Brown years ago when I was really young. I went to get some lessons from him, and he was really kind to me. But he was like, "Oh, people wouldn't know the difference between me and you," and I'm like thinking, they just see it magic. But I think people do know the difference. Maybe I give people more credit, but I think people can tell between.
But then you've got the definition of, a skilled magician, not skilled magician. What do you define as a skill? Because, you look at people like Eugene Berger, who is probably one of the greatest presenters of magic in the world. That's a skill that very few magicians would ever be able to match.
Yeah, I know. And I feel like such an idiot when I say stuff like that. So
No.
maybe it's, but then Eugene Berger, he had chops. He had chops as well. Look at, and also he listened. Like one of my favorite Eugene Burgess stories was he did the sponge balls where they explode, and everyone does a version of that now. And Eugene Burgess did that, and he literally does it on stage. Divernor's there, and he does it, and everyone goes mad. And he starts picking them up, and Divernor's like, "Why is he picking them up off the floor? He should just walk off and own it." And it's little things like that, those bits of information that Eugene goes that if you make a mess, you shouldn't pick it up. Not that I'm saying that you shouldn't be kind. If you don't have a stage manager, you should. But your audience, if you're on stage and you're performing for a big audience, and you're lucky to have someone on stage do that. So there's interesting things that I learned from him. But he had serious chops. He was a great presenter, but had chops.
Yeah.
But then,
so would you advise people that are wanting to become successful at magic, especially close-up magic? Because I know there's people out there that have that attitude of, all I need to do is be able to present, and I can just take an invisible deck, a Svengali deck, a coin unique, and I can make a career. Would you say that more doors will open if you learn intricate sleight of hand?
No, I think there's nothing wrong with doing all those stuff. Who knows? Because again, there's luck involved, isn't there? So I think there's nothing wrong. They're classic magic tricks for a reason. If you walk into any place and do magic, everyone's gonna love that. Even if your whole thing is just mobile phones and you're good at it, people are gonna like it. But I do think that if you want to get if you want to get to bigger places, then maybe I don't know. I don't know. I feel like what I could say would be wrong. I think my key is I've just been myself, gone with what I wanted to do, and just made it work. But there are magicians that pay loads of money just doing those tricks. So who's to say whether I'm right or wrong? I don't think there is a right or wrong in magic. I think for me, the biggest thing I think about is, am I being an artist? Is my magic expressing who I am? Am I having fun? And am I sharing my expression of who I am through my magic? That's what I think about. That's my goal. My goal isn't to do the best double lift or the best second deal. My goal is can I share my artistry of who I am through my magic and put myself into my magic and express it and give them a unique feeling? Because there's magicians that can do the invisible deck, and they can do it in such a unique way that it feels like you're watching it for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely and totally agree with you, 100%. One last question. Do you, with working with the Greatest Show so intently and the other stuff that you do in London, do you have time to take your own bookings now, or are you just focusing on that?
I just kind of again, like if people DM me and I get a gig, then that's cool. I had some guy just asked me the other day if I can do 2 days at his wedding. Um, and if I can fit it in, I will. I don't know what I do for 2 days. That's a bit crazy. I did tell him that a few hours is needed, but he said, "Oh, I just like hanging out with you. You seem like a fun guy." I went, "Cool." I went, "If you want to pay me to be your friend for 2 days, I can do that. We'll see what happens. It'll be fun." And like, I just kind of just if I get work, I get work, and if not. But the nice thing is I'm in a position where when I go to a gig, they're there for me. And that sounds selfish, but like it's like I went to the gig Christmas, and the CEO comes and meets me. He's so excited to see me, and he was like, "Just do what you want." And my the show had run over, and I couldn't get the train over, and I messaged them, and I was an hour and a half late, but they were going to 12 anyway. And he said, we understand you're very busy. We're just grateful to have you, and that's a nice position to be in, isn't it? Not to worry about that.
That's a great position to be in. Yeah, that's great. And very few magicians get to that point because a lot of the time when you get booked, they don't even know who you are. You're just going to turn up and you're just especially with close up. I did so many gigs over December where I
Yeah.
was doing close up and I was just a box tech check. It was just like, right, okay, we've got a corporate event. There's going to be 150 people there. What do we need? We need a DJ, check. We need a magician, check. They weren't after Craig Petty. They were after a magician.
Yeah, but you're a good magician. They won't just hire you.
Yeah. Yeah,
They know
yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's not like do you know what I mean? It's a different thing. But yeah, totally.
But it's a bad way to run a business. It's a bad way to run a. It is. It's terrible. The way I'm running it is the worst way. I feel like I'm in the dot-com bubble and it's gonna pop. It's like there was a time like after lockdown where I had no work, no gigs, nothing, no residencies, anything. And I was like, I said to my wife, I think I might have to get a real job. And she went, "You'll be okay." I went, and she went, "You'll be all right." And then I went, but I don't know. And then the box came calling, and she said, "See, you'll be all right." She had faith. She said something will turn up, or you'll invent something, or something will happen.
You know what? That's the having a partner that's so supportive is so important because
Yeah,
especially when you are a performer and hours can be weird and like
yeah.
you can be disappearing for days upon end and then coming back and having a partner that can support you 100% so vitally important.
Well, she loses me half the week, and I think that's hard sometimes, because she has a job herself. She works really hard, and we have two kids, and we have a child with additional needs. That's not easy either. So, but when I am home, I'm home, and that's the most important thing. I think that's what is expected from me. So and I expect that for myself as well. When I'm home, I'm a father. Like, and it's no Kieron the Mighty like in the house. It's just Kieron, Dad. And I switch off and I play Minecraft and I do all the things and with my kids. And then I go back to work and put the Kieron the Mighty hat on and back on.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And what I've learned from this, and this has been an incredible interview. I've been wanting to interview you for such a long time, and you're such a busy guy. But it's just shown me that with just passion and just a desire to want to perform, you can achieve so much. There's so many business plans out there these days, and you need to master social media, and you need to master digital marketing, and you need to learn about SEO, and you need to network, and you need to understand about this and that and the other. And look, all of that is important. But at the end of the day, you are one of the most successful performers in this country, and you did it by just wanting to perform and going out and just taking opportunities when they land in your lap, taking opportunities, saying yes, and making them work through talent and determination.
Yeah, well, and luck and support. So, and also like bear in mind, also had the privilege to be around some seriously talented people. You know, you know, I had the opportunity of being at Illusions, being around Mark, you know, like meeting the people at the box. I've had the luck to have some great teachers as well, and then and also, you know, just having fun. I never did social media to become famous. That wasn't my goal. My goal wasn't to be, I want to be a famous person. My goal was, I'm 2 years in, I've got lots of free time, I have no money. What can I do with a bubble? Like, that was it.
That's
And then, like,
amazing.
why don't I make the yo-yo? What if I do this? What if I play with this concept? You know, like, what can I do? So I could have probably focused on the social media and not done any of this, and it would have been okay. But there's no fun in that. I don't really consider social media a real job, and I certainly don't consider it. I know it's hard work doing social media. Trust me, I still make videos, but it's not fun in the same sense of performing. You know, the best thing I had from TikTok was when we had the pandemic and I could go live and I would perform magic and bubbles on the live, and that kept me mentally sane. Was just doing that. That was a joy. But for me, it's always going to be like performing live. And it's funny, really, because I always worry when I perform all the time now if I traded something off. And the other day, I pulled my cards out on the train, and some kids said, "Do you know any tricks?" I went, "I know one. I'm just working on it." And so I did that. The next thing I know, I'm performing on the train, and everyone's standing up for me, clapping, and I'm entertaining everyone. And I'm like, I still have it when it's not a job, you know. That was
Yeah.
nice because I was sometimes worried, like, have I traded like for you know, you sometimes think when you're in front of an audience, they kind of have to clap, don't they? So getting a clap from a random person means more. I know that sounds weird.
No, it doesn't. I totally get exactly what you're talking about. I really do.
Yeah, because it's real, right?
Yeah.
No one has anything. Not that it's not real in that, but when you're not being paid for it, it's just, I don't know. This It can be the most joyous.
Yeah. I
I think
agree.
for me, you know, I spent the first 2 years of my life not being paid for it, so you know, that was it.
Yeah. That's great. And one last question before we wrap things up, because I
Yeah.
mentioned at the beginning that we were going to talk about how come you've had 16,000 surnames. And I know people ask about this in magic. Can we just clear that up and understand why your surname's changed a few times?
Yeah, so my mum's been married quite a few times. She won't mind me mentioning that. She always says she likes wedding cake. Um, but when she got married, I would always change my name to her new husband's name. And her current husband is, I consider him my father. He's a lovely man. His last name's Johnson. But when I married my wife, she's an only child, and she's Lefever, and she's the last one. So I said, "Why don't I take your name?" Which is very untraditional. She didn't even suggest it. I suggested it. She was happy to be Johnson, but I said, like, it's such a cool name, and it'd be a shame to be gone because there's, you know, it's been in our family for a long time since her family came over the Huguenots. It's survived a lot, and I just thought if we can get it to live on one more name, then that's cool. So I took the name, and then that caused the confusion. And then Kieron the Mighty has always been my performing name, because when I came out, when I set up my email, I set up the email in the Navy because email was new. People don't realize that it's not that old email. And I decided to go with Kieron the Mighty as my email because I thought it was funny because I like comic books. And then I stuck it on my business card, and people just started calling me that. So I just went, oh, I'll go with that. So again, not on purpose. It was just a joke email that I made because I didn't think anyone was ever going to see it. I just called myself, and then it's just been the whole branding again by mistake. It wasn't like because I thought I was awesome. I created it because I love comic books, and I created the email before I even did magic. It was just the only email I had because I did have business cards for a while at the beginning when I was starting out, and it was Kieran the Mighty, and then it just kind of grew from that really.
Wow.
So
That's
it's again
amazing.
an accidental name choice. I did.
So funny.
I
A lot of
actually got
accidents that have ended up being.
well. Well, I did a gig for Sony Music, right? And he was looking for a magician, and he Googled magicians and went through the pages, and he chose me just based on my name. And I ended up like performing for like all these famous musicians at this Sony party, and I got loads of gigs from that. Like, and I hung out with what are they called? can't remember the name. Manic Street Preachers. I met them about 3 or 4 times now, just like randomly, and I was hanging out with them, and like I just got it because he said I didn't bother looking at what you did. I just chose your name. He said you sounded fun. So so it has helped me, that name, weirdly.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know why, but yeah, brought me a lot of good luck. Kieron the Mighty, you know. Like it feels a bit pretentious, but it's worked
No.
for me. So, well, in my mind, it felt a bit like, but it was never meant to. I'd never meant to be, and I had to choose a social media name, and I just went with Kieron the Mighty.
So, if people want to check out your social media,
Mm.
you say you focus mainly on Facebook now. What do they go on to on Facebook in order to see all?
Well, I still post on TikTok and I still post on YouTube because I've got 500,000 on YouTube, and I still post on there. I just don't do it that much. Because I should post on all platforms at all time. That's what my friend Ryan tells me all the time. But I just focus at the moment. I'm posting stuff on Facebook, but I still post stuff on all the other platforms, even on Instagram. I'm just not a prolific poster. I just post
Nope.
when I feel like it.
But is it Kieron the Mighty on there? Is it that?
It's Kieron the Mighty on everything. So
Yeah.
on every platform. Yeah. I feel like, and then I still like I have a Penguin lecture which is under Kieron Johnson, and I have the Remaxed and the Card Nice and the side Rubik's Cube and Jar, which I don't think anyone remembers that I did first. I think everyone just
Yeah,
forgot
you
I
got
did
there
that
before Henry Harriet's, right? You were the first
first.
person to put a Saturn Magic brought it out years before Henry came out with it.
Yeah, but Henry's my friend, so I actually gave Henry the trick as a gift in Korea when we were in FISM. I love Henry. I think he's amazing. I love all the stuff he does.
Yeah, Henry's
Um,
awesome.
oh yeah, he's such a lovely man. And also, like Henry he hadn't published a version, but he had a version that he'd been working on. He'd been working on the plot at the same time. So of course he's like a Rubik's Cube guy. He's going to work on the plot. And I love what Henry did with it. He made it a lot more simpler. My version, if you want to do a signed version, is cool and want to give it away. And if you want something commercial, then Henry's is the right choice. There's no bad choice in both. They're both excellent.
Yep.
And I love Henry's drink production with the Rubik's Cube. I do it all the time. It's my opener. It's such a great opener. It takes Takemitsu Osai's concept and it just adds that extra bit of gold on it. How do you take a classic trick and improve it? Henry did that. So I'm a huge Henry Harris fan, as you can tell. And
Yeah.
Henry Harris is always very kind about me as well. So, but he's a lovely man. But he's the first stand I go to at Blackpool every year.
Yeah, he's always got the best stuff.
Wow. I just like the way they make me feel. Like when I go there, they're always like they treat me. It's such a nice respect,
Yes.
That's why I like going there. But I also end up spending loads of money. I'm buying all their stuff, and half of it I never do. But I don't know, when I go to Henry's store, I'm like, it's the one store where I do that.
Are you going to be at Blackpool this year?
I think so. I booked tickets for your Wednesday thing with you and Lloyd, so I probably should go. I haven't bought tickets yet.
Well, I'm going to ask you here now. Will you come and do something on the stage at our Wednesday thing?
Yeah, I'm coming to your Wednesday thing anyway.
So
I haven't bought Blackpool tickets, but I bought a ticket for your show thing.
So come and do something on stage then. Come and do something on stage. We'd love you to.
Okay, if I come, yeah. Yeah, it sounds like it. I don't know what I do though, but yeah, I can
Dude, just be yourself. You're incredible. I'm a big fan. I've been a big fan of you for so long. And I just want to say, one, thank you for coming on the channel. And two, thank you seriously for everything that you've done for Magic, everything that you've done. You're an inspiration. You are an inspiration. And it's just crazy that everything, even though, like we talked about, a lot of the stuff are happy accidents, but everything that you've done, like I said at the beginning, you've excelled at. I'm not going to do social media. I'm going to dominate social media. I'm not going to create magic. I'm going to dominate that space. I'm not going to, everything that you've done to such a high level. And I think it's because you're so passionate about doing it to the best of your ability that you can't help but to succeed because you love it.
Well, I'm Marmite as well. There's a lot of performers that don't get what I'm about. I did a lecture in Vienna, And the guy was not a fan. In fact, he was so angry about me, he wrote to the next lecturer and they nearly cancelled my lecture. And when I did the lecture, they turned around and went, "That's like one of the best lectures we've ever seen." I don't know what it was on about, but so I understand that I'm not to everyone's cup of tea. I get that, and I think that's the other thing is not being afraid to be. If we talk about advice, is don't be worried about trying to fit everyone, because one thing I'm learning as I get older, it doesn't matter how good you are, how excellent you are, or how proficient you are. It's not everyone's going to like you, and that is the hardest thing for me to learn to accept. That is the hardest thing for me. That's the one thing I've learned on this show I'm in, that they've taught me, where and the directors just told me that, and that's the hardest thing for me to deal with as a performer, is because I want to be liked by everyone, but understanding that it isn't going to be that way. But as I said, the great thing about close-up magic, there's always a new audience.
That's it.
There always a new audience, and even like, even myself, like I messed up tricks on stage. It happens. It's going to happen, because if you've got to learn, right? And if you ever see a Darren Brown show and you go to the first time he does it, it's fantastic to go watch. And you watch his show and you go, "Oh, that was okay." And then you go halfway through and watch him again, and then you go, "Oh, he's made those changes." And then you see him at the end, and he's getting standing ovations everywhere he goes. And you go, because he even Darren Brown is fixing as he goes. And I think sometimes as magicians we don't talk about that. We see the finished product and we go, "Oh yeah, they're slick," but you don't see all the failure they had along the way, or all the stuff, or all the experimentation. Like I tried a version of Linking Rings on stage the other day. I did it for 9 times in a row, and it felt good in rehearsal. It felt funny, but on stage it was dying. It wasn't that it wasn't getting a good reaction. I saw good reactions, but at the same time I knew it wasn't landing as well as it could. And some magicians would be okay with that, or some performers would go, "Oh, it's good enough." But for me, I know that I have to go back and start again. Yeah. And it's just accepting that not everything we do is going to work for us. I can't do coin magic to save my life. I can do the tricks and I can perform them well, and I can do a lovely coins cross. But if I do it, it doesn't matter how much passion I put into that trick and how much energy I give it, I just can't get it to land for me. Not because I can't do it well, because it's just, there's something about that trick that does not work for me.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But then take Linking Rings. I make Linking Rings work, but I struggle with coins. And Linking Rings is hard. I think is a harder sell than coins.
Yeah,
in my opinion, I think
definitely.
It's harder. Yeah. You're already at this uphill struggle, because as soon as you bring them out, you go, "Oh, I've seen that," or "I have a set of those," or "I know that." You're already against so much when you do that. But with coins you're not. But it's just I don't get me wrong, like I've done it for my company manager, the coins cross, and he loves it, and he goes, "I love that when you do it." But I do it for some people, they just don't get it. I don't know why. Why is that a thing? That's not just me, right?
No, it's not. It's.
Okay,
I mean, I love coin magic. I mean, 50% of my working set is coin material, but there's other
but it
things.
works for you, right?
Yeah, there's other things I've tried to do, and I've just never made it work. I'll be completely honest with you. I bought it and I tried it in gigs for so long, I could never make your block of ice thing work for me. And then I've got friends like Tom Mullinger, Jester Styles, who I've gone to gigs with him and I've watched him, and he's had people screaming and running away with exactly the same trick. And I'm like, I just must be shit because I'm seeing him literally destroy audiences with something that I'm just taking. I'm just like, it's not working for me.
Well, and it's funny, isn't it? Really, I think it is finding tricks that we resonate, but I think it's also like I haven't done the ice now for a while, for 2 years. I wonder whether that would still be good for me in the sense of where I am as a performer, because I've become so relaxed as a performer now, and so just easy that everything is calm. Like, unless I'm in my tent where I'm a bit crazy, the ice will work. But in my close up, I don't know. I don't think I would be happy producing a block of ice from fire. I know it's a strong trick, and Dynamo does it all the time, or Stephen does it, or Dynamo, he does it all the time, and he loves it. But I think for me, I just kind of moved past that era.
Yeah,
maybe I shouldn't say that. I still love ice magic, but I just, I don't know. I feel like I'd rather at this point in my career, I'd rather do harmonica than produce a block of ice. I would never have said that 10 years ago. I would be like, "Who is that guy?"
But again, you evolve, and
Yeah.
things change and you adapt. And I think that's the key to a successful performer, a successful magician, is being open to change.
Yeah, and also just like the great thing about like learning new stuff and getting too good at it is you can always do your old stuff. No one says that you can't do that other stuff at some point, you know. So I can go back to that style, and that's the great thing. Like I can do so many different styles. I can perform. I have stage acts where I don't talk on stage, where I do 5 minutes, and I'm able to do musicality acts. I can be on stage and do a 10 minute act on stage if I want to do it. No problem. I can just walk up on any time, or I can do an hour. So and talk and tell jokes. Or I can do a mix of bubbles and other skills. So it's just, or I can do close-up magic, or I could walk to the house party and I get there and they told me there's 100 people and there's only 10 people there, and I can sit with them for 2 hours and just tell jokes and do magic. I think being adaptable is the most important thing as a magician.
I agree. I agree. Dude, thank you so much for coming on the channel. I know
No,
how
thank you
busy
for
you
having
are.
me.
I know how busy you are. It's took me 4 years to get you here. So
Well, I'm on my way to London in a minute. I've got my
I know
bags
you
packed
are.
next to
Like,
me.
we had to squeeze this in. This was the only time we can do it. So thank you so much. I'm looking forward to
Uh,
seeing you at the session. You're going to be at the session.
yeah, I'm going
Um,
to go on Sunday. I've got something for you, but I won't tell you what it is. I'll share it on Sunday. But I'm going to be on Sunday. I've took the day off the show to come, so I'll probably come Saturday night. I haven't
yeah.
booked a hotel yet, but I'll figure that out on like when I turn up.
That's amazing. Well, look, I'm looking forward to seeing you, and everyone at the session will be looking forward to seeing you as well. Congratulations on everything you've achieved and everything you do want to achieve. If you want to see the show, if you're watching this and you want to see the greatest show, you can literally just Google the greatest show London tickets, and
Yeah, it's come alive. The Greatest Showman. There is a Greatest Showman opening up in Bristol, ironically, in March, but not to be confused. So they're the Greatest Showman will come alive. We're still we basically we have all the Greatest Showman music and we have a story, and we're basically like Circus Spectacular, and we have some of the best circus show acts in the world. In our show, they've been in Circus Soleil and performed all around the world. They are insanely talented. We have these guys called the teeter boards where they jump on boards and they do flips and stuff. And we have like some of the most amazing stuff. And they're always working on new stuff. They've got this new trick now, the Anacalis, where Josephine is held by one hand and basically she spins one-handed. It's crazy. So some of the stuff, the acts that you see, and the hair hanging routine, and just also the visualness of it. I've seen the show a million times, but it blows me away. And our lead, Simon, such an amazing singer and great guy as well, great leader. So I'm very lucky to be with some of the most talented people I've ever worked with. I feel like I say that a lot, but I'm very lucky that I've got the last few years I've worked with some of the most amazing performers.
you're not lucky. I mean, there's obviously an element to luck to it, but I'm telling you, man, it's skill, it's skill, it's passion, it's luck, it's obsession, it's you're unique, you're different, and it's why we all love you.
Thank you. Well, just work hard. I feel like that sounds awful, though, doesn't it? I don't really know what the secret is. I have no clue. Maybe be disorganized. Maybe that'll work out for you.
Let's give that a go. Dude, thank you so much for coming on the channel. You're amazing, Kieron. I
Thank
want
you, Craig.
everybody that's watching this to do two things for me. One, leave a message down below. Leave a comment in the comments. Let Kieron know what you thought of the interview. I loved it. Second of all, go check out his social media and check out all of his amazing videos. And then finally, go and check out Come Alive, The Greatest Show. Me and Ryland and Thea are definitely going to be going and seeing it soon. Lloyd Barnes raved about it on the podcast, and it's incredible. So if you find yourself in London with something to do, go and check out the show and say hi to Kieron. But on behalf of Kieron, on behalf of everyone else, thank you so much for watching this interview. And Kieron, one more time, thank you for being on it.
Thank you, Craig. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Guys, my name's Craig. I'll see you again right here on Magic TV.